Today, I'll be talking about every single stat in the game and what they actually mean. Most Call of Duty players know that the stat bars in game when we build guns aren't really accurate whatsoever. Seriously, these bars mean nothing. And these bars can be extremely misleading, especially when you're trying to compare different attachments while trying to build for a very specific build. And sure, I've got stat guides that explain things really nicely, how to build things and what stats mean, but I don't talk about every single stat. So today, let's break down pretty much all the relevant stats in the game. I'll be covering them in 4 categories: damage, recoil and accuracy, mobility, and perks and other. So let's start with damage-based ones. Bullet velocity, one of the easiest things to explain in the game. Pretty much how long it takes your bullet to get from the muzzle of your gun to your target. A higher bullet velocity means it's gonna get there faster and probably gonna feel more like hit scan. Really easy explained, just how I showed the EM2 compared to a pistol. Now for range, damage range, and effective damage range. Most guns have at least 1 drop off. Some have 2, like SMGs, and some even have 3. By boosting this stat, you pretty much just increase the drop off range. Also, a secret bonus is that it also increases your bullet velocity. Damage is a self-explanatory stat. Either it's going to increase all your damage or decrease it. It's always going to be increasing or decreasing it for anything you hit. Vehicle damage is also self-explanatory. It deals extra damage to vehicles, but I'll talk more about this later. Headshot, torso, or limb damage? Yeah, it only boosts 1 or 2 of these, depending exactly on what it says it is. And also pay attention if it takes away from 1. Fire rate and full auto perks, even burst fire perks. These just make your weapon fire faster in full auto or in burst. Although for burst, it doesn't make it faster, so you will get a slower TTK. Incendiary damage / thermite. Pretty much, it lights your enemies on fire. With some weapons, you'll be doing some bonus damage when you first hit them, but the important part happens after you stop hitting them. They're gonna start taking small ticks of damage because they are on fire. This also prevents them from plating up, which is quite nice. Explosive means you now have explosive rounds. They will be area of effect, and they deal a lot more damage usually. Now let's move on to recoil and accuracy. Vertical recoil control is pretty easy. It's gonna squish or stretch your recoil pattern vertically. And horizontal recoil control does the same, just sideways. Now when you just see recoil control, it's mainly gonna be talking about vertical recoil, but it's gonna have maybe less than 5% horizontal control as well. Now when looking at optics, you're gonna see that some have specific levels of zoom. There's some that say precision side picture and some say zoom level. Others just tell you 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, or whatever. But anything under 3 times is a precision sight picture. This usually doesn't help you with recoil, but anything that says zoom level or 3 times and above will actually help you with that recoil. It's different for every sight, but if you're using something like the Candid Hybrid, you can expect quite a lot of help. Recoil recovery is how fast your reticle comes back to the center. And then there's recoil stabilization. Pretty much, it has a lot of horizontal recoil control, which tightens it up, but at the same time, helps you a lot with recoil recovery. Aiming stability is how much your weapon sways while you're aiming down sights. Idle sway control is the exact same thing, but for sniper rifles. Aim walking steadiness is how much your sight moves while you're aiming down the sights. Reduced scope sway and gun bob is basically combining aiming stability and aim walking steadiness. Hipfire accuracy is represented by how big the reticle in the middle of your screen is. And this tells you how much your bullets can spread out while you're hip firing, because we all know that when you hip fire, your bullets don't go straight to the center. A tighter or wider pellet spread is for shotguns, and it's basically telling you how big the cone is going to be. And this translates to how accurate you need to be. Now with the Vanguard weapons came the accuracy stat, and this is basically ADS bloom. However, it's been toned down a lot to the point where I can't really notice it, and apparently it's going to be removed entirely. Highly accurate and controllable is another Vanguard stat, and this basically means the same thing, combining accuracy with recoil control. Initial firing recoil is recoil control for the first 7 shots, and accuracy and recoil during sustained fire is accuracy and recoil control after the first 7 shots. Now for the mobility stats. Aim down sight speed is how fast you lose your hip fire penalty. Because with many of the weapons, you'll actually be able to fire accurately without a hip fire penalty before you can either see your iron sights or your reticle. Sprint to fire speed is how fast you can fire after sprinting or tact sprinting, whether you're hip firing or aiming down your sights. Your movement speed is everything. Anything that affects this stat will affect every single type of movement, including all of the following. Sprinting movement speed is how fast you can move while sprinting, not tactical sprinting, just normal sprinting. Aim walking movement speed is how fast you can move while aiming down your sights, whether it's sideways, forward, or backwards. Strafe speed is how fast you can move side to side. ADS firing movement speed is self-explanatory. You'll usually slow down when you start firing a weapon and you're aiming down your sights. Firing movement speed is how fast you can move while firing, whether it's hip fire or aiming down your sights. And mounted movement is exactly how fast we can move while we're mounted, because since the Vanguard integration, we can do that now. And now for the last category, perks and others. Sound suppression is one of the best perks that we can have. It removes us from the minimap and it lets us not be heard past 100 meters when firing. No minimap ping. This will still let us be heard, but we at least won't show up in the minimap when we fire our weapons. Position concealment will still have a red dot when we fire, but it will go away extremely fast. However, unlike the last two, muzzle flash concealment does nothing for these things. If you want to know more about these, I've got a video that goes way more in depth. A laser or flashlight visible to enemies is exactly that. Your enemies will be able to see exactly what you can see. Crippling power sounds interesting, but it can't really work in Warzone because TTKs are so fast that we just can't get a use out of it. Especially since it will only work after the enemy has no plates. But essentially, if you shoot an enemy in the leg, it'll kinda stun them. Bullet penetration lets you shoot through walls, vehicles, and any other things. I have a whole video about that if you guys want to check it out. Destruction is bullet penetration with the ability to have dismemberment. Now, remember when I said vehicle damage and damage to vehicles and kill streaks? Cold War weapons with a cavalry lance or barrel, and Vanguard weapons with the dismantle perk will do extra damage to vehicles, but suddenly have zero penetration. But the other Vanguard perks and attachments that are similarly described actually do have penetration. Max starting ammo means that when you get your loadout and you get your weapon, it's gonna have a full magazine and full reserves. Flinch resistance reduces the amount of flinch you get when shot. Weapon swap quickness is a Vanguard perk. However, it doesn't mean that you can swap to this weapon that it's equipped on. It means that you can swap to your other weapon much quicker. So essentially, it's half of amped. And this is actually kind of good if you want to run something like Combat Scout. Then there's equipment dexterity. It's another part of amped, and it lets you use equipment much faster. But this one actually works on the weapon that you have equipped. I know there's a lot more stats and perks out there, but I wanted to pick the most common ones or the ones that seem most interesting. If I missed any that you really want to know about, let me know and I'll actually talk about it in the comments. Or if there's too many of them, I can probably make another video. But as always, if there's any weapon, build, or part of the game you want me to break down, let me know. You may see it on the next Community Wednesday. And that's the video. If you enjoyed it or it's helped you in any way, let me know by leaving a like. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below. And if you want to make sure that you never miss another video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.